On a crisp morning in May 2018, millions of eyes around the world turned to a small chapel in Windsor Castle, where history was about to be rewritten. Not since Diana Spencer walked down the aisle had the world held its breath for a royal wedding, but this time was different. This wasn't just about titles, crowns, or ancient traditions. This was about love breaking barriers, challenging centuries-old customs, and proving that fairy tales could still come true in the modern world. Meghan Markle, a divorced American actress with mixed heritage, was about to become the Duchess of Sussex, marrying into the most scrutinized family on earth. Her journey from Hollywood sets to Windsor Castle had captured hearts globally, but it also sparked conversations that the royal family had never faced before. Would tradition bend for love? Could an outsider truly find her place in an institution built on rigid protocol? As wedding bells prepared to ring across Britain, nobody could predict that this magical day would mark both a beautiful beginning and the start of a dramatic chapter that would eventually lead the couple to step away from royal duties entirely. But on this perfect May morning, with spring flowers blooming and hope filling the air, all that mattered was love, courage, and the belief that sometimes, just sometimes, ordinary people could create extraordinary moments that change the world forever. The morning sun painted Windsor Castle in golden hues as Meghan Markle opened her eyes on the most important day of her life. May 19, 2018, had arrived with all the promise and nervousness that comes with dreams about to become reality. In the luxurious suite at Cliveden House Hotel, about 8 miles from Windsor Castle, Meghan took a deep breath and smiled at the thought that by evening, she would be the Duchess of Sussex, married to the man who had captured her heart in ways she never imagined possible. The journey to this moment had been anything but traditional. 2 years earlier, Meghan was simply an actress known for her role as Rachel Zane on the television series Suits, living in Toronto and building a career that she loved. She was also a humanitarian, working with organizations like World Vision and the United Nations, passionate about women's rights and social justice. Her life was full and meaningful, but she had no idea that a blind date set up by a mutual friend in London would completely change everything. Harry, meanwhile, had spent most of his adult life wondering if he would ever find someone who could love him for who he truly was, beyond the titles and the constant media attention. The younger son of Prince Charles and the late Princess Diana had always been the more rebellious of the two royal brothers, often making headlines for the wrong reasons in his youth. But by 2016, he had transformed himself into a dedicated humanitarian, founding the Invictus Games for wounded veterans and working tirelessly for various charitable causes, particularly those supporting mental health awareness and veterans' welfare. Their first meeting in July 2016 was arranged by Violet von Wessenholz, a mutual friend who thought they might hit off. The location was a quiet restaurant in London, chosen specifically to avoid the prying eyes of photographers and journalists who followed Harry's every move. Both were nervous, but for different reasons. Harry worried about whether Meghan would be overwhelmed by the reality of royal life, while Meghan wondered if she could connect with someone whose world was so different from her own. From the moment they sat down together, however, all their worries melted away. They talked for hours about their shared passion for humanitarian work, their love of travel, and their similar sense of humor. Harry was immediately struck by Meghan's intelligence, her genuine interest in making the world a better place, and her ability to see beyond his royal status to the man underneath. Meghan, for her part, found Harry to be nothing like the party prince portrayed in the media, but rather a thoughtful, caring man who was deeply committed to using his privilege to help others. Their conversation flowed so naturally that they barely noticed the restaurant emptying around them. When they finally realized how late it had become, Harry knew he wanted to see her again. He asked if she would be free the following evening, and when Meghan said yes, he felt a flutter of excitement he hadn't experienced in years. That second date was even better than the first, and by the end of the evening, both knew that something special was beginning. The early months of their relationship were conducted in secret, with Harry flying to Toronto whenever his royal duties allowed, and Meghan making discreet trips to London. They went to great lengths to keep their romance private, understanding that once the media discovered their relationship, their lives would never be quite the same. They met at friends' houses, enjoyed quiet dinners in hidden corners of restaurants, and took long walks in places where they were unlikely to be recognized. During this time, Harry introduced Meghan to his closest friends and family members. Prince William and Catherine were among the first to meet her, and they were immediately charmed by her warmth and genuine interest in their children. The meeting with Harry's father, Prince Charles, went equally well, with Charles appreciating Meghan's knowledge of environmental issues and her commitment to charitable work. But perhaps most importantly, Harry took Meghan to visit his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen, then 90 years old, had seen many relationships come and go in her long reign, and she had developed a keen ability to judge character. Her meeting with Meghan at Buckingham Palace was informal by royal standards, but significant in every way that mattered. They discussed Meghan's work with the United Nations, her passion for education, and her thoughts on the Commonwealth. The Queen was impressed by Meghan's intelligence and poise, and she could see how happy her grandson was when he looked at this remarkable young woman. As 2016 turned into 2017, the secret relationship became increasingly difficult to maintain. Paparazzi photographers began camping outside Meghan's Toronto apartment, and tabloid newspapers started printing speculative stories about Harry's mystery girlfriend. The pressure intensified when Meghan attended the Invictus Games in Toronto in September 2017, sitting in a section reserved for friends and family of competitors. Though they were careful not to be photographed together, their body language and stolen glances made it clear to observers that their relationship was serious. The media attention brought both positive and negative reactions. Many people were excited about the possibility of an American actress joining the royal family, seeing it as a sign that the monarchy was modernizing and embracing diversity. Others were less welcoming, with some media outlets and social media users making inappropriate comments about Meghan's race and background. Harry was deeply troubled by the racist undertones of some of the coverage, and in November 2016, he took the unprecedented step of issuing a public statement through Kensington Palace, confirming his relationship with Meghan and condemning the harassment she was experiencing. The statement read, in part, "Prince Harry is worried about Miss Markle's safety and is deeply disappointed that he has not been able to protect her. It is not right that a few months into a relationship with him, that Miss Markle should be subjected to such a storm. He knows commentators will say this is the price she has to pay and that this is all part of the game. He strongly disagrees. This is not a game. It is her life and his." The public confirmation of their relationship marked a turning point. While the media attention intensified, Harry and Meghan no longer had to hide their feelings for each other. They began making public appearances together, starting with their first official joint engagement in Nottingham in December 2017, where they visited a World AIDS Day charity fair. The public response was overwhelmingly positive, with crowds gathering to catch a glimpse of the couple and many people commenting on their obvious chemistry and shared commitment to charitable work. Behind the scenes, preparations for their future were already underway. Meghan had begun the process of becoming a British citizen, which required her to give up her American citizenship. She was also receiving intensive training in royal protocol from palace staff, learning everything from the proper way to curtsy to the complex rules governing royal precedence. The transition wasn't always easy, as Meghan had to adjust from the relative freedom of her acting career to the highly structured world of royal duties and constant public scrutiny. One of the most significant challenges was Meghan's relationship with her father, Thomas Markle. A former television lighting director, Thomas had been largely absent from Meghan's life since her parents' divorce when she was young. As news of Meghan's relationship with Harry became public, Thomas found himself thrust into an unwelcome spotlight. The media tracked him down to his home in Mexico, and he struggled to cope with the attention. His relationship with Meghan became strained as he gave interviews to tabloid newspapers without her knowledge or consent, sometimes sharing private family photos and making statements that embarrassed his daughter. The contrast with Harry's family couldn't have been more stark. While the Markles were dealing with media chaos and family drama, the royal family had rallied around Meghan with remarkable warmth and support. Prince Charles walked her down part of the aisle at a family friend's wedding, treating her like the daughter he'd never had. The Queen invited Meghan to join her for various official engagements, including a day of royal duties in Cheshire, demonstrating her confidence in Meghan's ability to represent the family with dignity and grace. As their wedding day approached, Harry and Meghan had to navigate the complex requirements of a royal wedding while trying to maintain elements that reflected their personal story and values. They chose St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle for the ceremony, a more intimate venue than Westminster Abbey, where William and Catherine had married. They wanted their wedding to honor royal tradition while also incorporating elements that celebrated Meghan's American heritage and their shared commitment to diversity and inclusion. The guest list itself was a reflection of their unique position between two worlds. Alongside members of the royal family and British aristocracy were Hollywood celebrities like Oprah Winfrey, George and Amal Clooney, and Serena Williams, as well as representatives from the various charities and organizations that Harry and Meghan supported. They chose to invite members of the public who had made significant contributions to their communities, demonstrating their belief that true nobility comes from service to others rather than accident of birth. The morning of their wedding, as Meghan prepared for the ceremony that would change her life forever, she reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. From a young girl in Los Angeles dreaming of making a difference in the world to a woman about to marry into one of the most famous families on earth, her story was proof that love could indeed conquer all obstacles. As her makeup artist applied the final touches and her hairstylist perfected every curl, Meghan felt a sense of calm confidence. She was ready to step into her new role, not just as Harry's wife, but as a working member of the royal family committed to using her platform for good. The dress hanging in her suite was a masterpiece of simplicity and elegance, designed by Claire Waite-Keller of Givenchy. The pure white silk Katie gown featured a baton neckline and three-quarter sleeves, with a dramatic 15-foot train that would flow behind her as she walked down the aisle. The 5-meter silk tulle veil was embroidered with flowers from each of the 53 Commonwealth countries, a detail that spoke to Meghan's understanding of her future role and her respect for the institution she was joining. As she prepared to leave for Windsor Castle, Meghan thought about Harry, who was probably feeling just as nervous and excited as she was. She knew that he would be waiting for her at the altar with the biggest smile on his face, ready to begin their new life together as partners in every sense of the word. Their love story had captured the world imagination, not just because it was a fairy tale, but because it represented hope for a more inclusive, modern, and compassionate future for the royal family and the many countries and communities they would serve together. At Windsor Castle, Prince Harry stood in the vestry of St. George's Chapel, adjusting his military uniform for the third time in 10 minutes. His brother William, serving as his best man, watched with an amused smile as Harry checked his appearance in the mirror once again. The blue dress uniform of the Blues and Royals, complete with golden braiding and ceremonial sword, was immaculate, but Harry's nerves were getting the better of him. This was the day he had been dreaming about since he realized that Meghan was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. And now that it had arrived, the magnitude of the moment was almost overwhelming. William placed a reassuring hand on his younger brother's shoulder and reminded him of the conversation they had shared the night before during the traditional bachelor dinner. Harry had confessed his amazement at finding someone who understood not just the public side of his life, but also the private struggles he had faced, particularly in dealing with the loss of their mother, Princess Diana, when he was just 12 years old. Meghan had helped him heal in ways he hadn't thought possible, encouraging him to seek therapy and supporting him through the difficult process of addressing his grief and anger. The chapel itself was a vision of spring beauty, with white garden roses, peonies, and foxgloves creating stunning floral arrangements throughout the ancient Gothic space. The flowers had been chosen specifically by Harry and Meghan to reflect the natural English countryside and to honor Princess Diana, whose favorite flower, white garden roses, featured prominently in the displays. The sweet smell of the blooms mixed with the polished wood and stone of the centuries-old chapel, creating an atmosphere of timeless elegance and romance. Outside the chapel, crowds had been gathering since the early hours of the morning. The narrow streets of Windsor were filled with people from all walks of life, many of whom had traveled thousands of miles to witness this historic moment. There were American fans of Meghan's television show, British royalists who had followed Harry's life since his birth, and people from around the Commonwealth who saw this wedding as a symbol of progress and inclusivity. Union Jack flags waved alongside American stars and stripes, while vendors sold commemorative mugs, tea towels, and photographs to eager souvenir hunters. The atmosphere was festive and joyful, with street performers entertaining the crowds and impromptu parties breaking out as people shared their excitement with strangers who had become instant friends through their shared anticipation. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, hoping to catch a glimpse of the famous guests arriving at the chapel, while elderly royal watchers shared stories of previous royal weddings they had witnessed over the decades. Among the distinguished guests making their way into the chapel were some of the most famous faces in entertainment, politics, and humanitarian work. Oprah Winfrey, dressed in a stunning pale pink ensemble, waved to the crowds as she entered the chapel, her presence symbolizing the bridge between American celebrity culture and British royal tradition. George and Amal Clooney, both close friends of Harry and Meghan, brought their own touch of Hollywood glamour to the proceedings, while tennis champion Serena Williams represented Meghan's close friendships from her pre-royal life. The political world was represented by former Prime Minister John Major and current Prime Minister Theresa May, while representatives from the Commonwealth countries filled several rows, reflecting the international significance of the union. Members of European royal families, including Crown Prince Haakon and Crown Princess Mette-Marit of Norway, added to the international flavor of the guest list, demonstrating the global reach and diplomatic importance of the British royal family. But perhaps the most touching moments came as Harry's family members took their seats. Queen Elizabeth II, then 92 years old, arrived wearing a bright lime green coat and matching hat, her choice of color ensuring that she would be visible to the crowds while maintaining the cheerful, optimistic tone she wanted to set for the day. Prince Philip, though 96 and recently recovered from hip surgery, had insisted on attending to support his grandson, demonstrating the family's unity and commitment to this important milestone. Prince Charles arrived with Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, both beaming with pride and happiness for Harry. Charles had developed a particularly close relationship with Meghan, often calling her tungsten in affectionate recognition of her strength and resilience. He had been deeply moved by her kindness and the positive impact she had on his son, and he was looking forward to walking her down the final part of the aisle after her father's last-minute decision not to attend the wedding. The situation with Meghan's father had been one of the most stressful aspects of the wedding preparations. Thomas Markle's decision to stage paparazzi photographs for money, followed by his heart attack, and ultimate decision not to travel to England, had been devastating for Meghan. She had maintained her composure throughout the crisis, but those close to her knew how much it hurt her that her father would not be there to walk her down the aisle on the most important day of her life. The absence was made more poignant by the presence of Meghan's mother, Doria Ragland, who had flown from Los Angeles to London and had quickly won over everyone she met with her grace, warmth, and obvious pride in her daughter. Doria, a social worker and yoga instructor, represented everything that Meghan valued: authenticity, compassion, and quiet strength. Her presence at the royal wedding was historic in itself, as she became the first African-American mother to watch her daughter marry into the British royal family. The morning had been emotionally challenging for Doria as well. as she helped her daughter prepare for the wedding while managing her own feelings about the magnitude of the day and the absence of Thomas. She had watched Meghan transform from a curious child interested in everything from acting to activism into a confident woman ready to take on one of the most scrutinized roles in public life. As they shared quiet moments together in the bridal suite, Doria offered her daughter the same steady support and practical wisdom that had guided Meghan throughout her life. The music for the ceremony had been carefully chosen to reflect both tradition and personal meaning. The chapel choir of St. George's Chapel, conducted by James Vivian, would perform pieces that had been sung at royal weddings for generations. But Harry and Meghan had also chosen to include a performance by a gospel choir, led by Karen Gibson and the Kingdom Choir, who would sing Stand By Me. This choice was significant not only because it honored African-American musical traditions, but also because the song's message of support and commitment perfectly captured the essence of their relationship. The Most Reverend Michael Curry, the first African-American to serve as presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church in the United States, had been chosen to deliver the wedding address. This election was another example of Harry and Meghan's commitment to making their wedding inclusive and meaningful to communities that had historically been underrepresented in royal ceremonies. Bishop Curry was known for his passionate and engaging preaching style, and his presence promised to bring a different energy to the traditionally formal royal wedding service. As the morning progressed and the time for the ceremony approached, Harry found himself thinking about his mother and how much he wished she could be there to meet Meghan and witness their wedding. Princess Diana had always encouraged her sons to marry for love rather than duty, and Harry knew she would have adored Meghan for her compassion, her intelligence, and her commitment to humanitarian causes. In fact, Harry had given Meghan one of his mother's rings when he proposed, and Meghan would be wearing Diana's aquamarine ring to the wedding reception that evening. The proposal itself had been a private, intimate moment that perfectly reflected their relationship. In November 2017, Harry had planned a quiet evening at Nottingham Cottage, their home on the Kensington Palace grounds. He had prepared Meghan's favorite meal and arranged for the fireplace to be lit, creating the cozy atmosphere they both preferred over grand gestures or public displays. As they sat together after dinner, Harry got down on one knee and asked Meghan to be his wife, presenting her with a ring he had designed himself using diamonds from his mother's personal jewelry collection and a central stone from Botswana, a country that held special meaning for both of them. Meghan's answer was an immediate and joyful yes, and they'd spent the rest of the evening talking about their dreams for the future and their shared vision of using their position to make a positive difference in the world. They both understood that their marriage would be about more than their personal happiness. It would be a partnership dedicated to service, charity, and representing the best values of the institution they were joining. The security preparations for the wedding had been extensive, with police officers from multiple forces working together to ensure the safety of the royal family, distinguished guests, and the thousands of members of the public who had gathered in Windsor. Snipers were positioned on rooftops, while plainclothes officers mingled with the crowds, and security barriers had been erected to create safe viewing areas for the public while maintaining clear access routes for the wedding party and guests. Despite the heavy security presence, the atmosphere remained festive and welcoming. The decision to allow members of the public into the castle grounds to watch the bride and groom arrive and depart was typical of Harry and Meghan's desire to share their special day with the people who had supported them throughout their relationship. They had specifically requested that the guest list include representatives from the various charities and organizations they supported, ensuring that their wedding would celebrate not just their love for each other, but also their commitment to serving others. The international media coverage was unprecedented, with television networks from around the world providing live coverage of every detail, from the arrival of guests to the decorations in the chapel to the menu for the wedding breakfast. Fashion experts analyzed every outfit, historians provided context about royal wedding traditions, and relationship experts offered commentary on the significance of various moments in the ceremony. Back in the bridal suite, Meghan was putting the finishing touches on her wedding day look. The simplicity of her dress was complemented by Queen Mary's diamond bandeau tiara, a piece that had been specially chosen by the Queen from her private collection. The tiara, made in 1932, featured a center brooch that could be removed and worn separately, and its elegant, understated design perfectly complemented Meghan's sophisticated style. Her bouquet was another meaningful element of her wedding ensemble. The small, white arrangement included sweet peas, lily of the valley, astilbe, jasmine, and astrantia, but the most significant inclusion was a sprig of myrtle from the garden at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, continuing a royal tradition that dated back to Queen Victoria's daughter's wedding in 1858. Hidden within the bouquet were stems of forget-me-nots, Diana's favorite flowers, ensuring that Harry's mother would be represented in this important moment. As the clock moved closer to noon, when the ceremony would begin, Meghan took a final look in the mirror and smiled. She was ready to become the Duchess of Sussex, ready to marry the man she loved, and ready to begin the next chapter of her life as a working member of the royal family. The journey from that first blind date in London to this moment had been extraordinary, filled with challenges and joys in equal measure. But she had never doubted that Harry was worth whatever difficulties they might face together. The sounds of the crowds outside, the music of the military bands, and the excitement in the air all combined to create a sense of magic and possibility that seemed to fill every corner of Windsor Castle. This was not just a wedding. It was a celebration of love, hope, and the belief that two people from very different worlds could come together to create something beautiful and meaningful for themselves and for the millions of people who would be inspired by their story. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived as the first strains of wedding music echoed through St. George's Chapel. At exactly 12 noon, as Big Ben chimed across London 60 miles away, the procession began. The chapel fell into reverent silence as the choir's voices soared through the ancient Gothic arches, carrying centuries of tradition and the hopes of a new generation. Prince Harry, flanked by his brother William, entered the chapel through the vestry door, walking slowly toward the altar where they would wait for Meghan's arrival. Harry's face showed a mixture of nervous excitement and pure joy as he took his position at the front of the chapel, occasionally glancing toward the great west door through which his bride would soon appear. William, ever the supportive older brother, whispered something that made Harry smile and visibly relax his shoulders. The processional music, Trumpet Voluntary by Jeremiah Clarke, filled the chapel with its majestic sound as members of the royal family and distinguished guests turned their attention to the entrance. Queen Elizabeth II sat in the front row, her bright lime green coat a cheerful splash of color against the ancient stone walls, while Prince Philip sat beside her, his presence a testament to his determination not to miss this important family celebration despite his recent health challenges. Prince Charles and Camilla sat across the aisle, both beaming with pride and happiness for Harry. Charles had spent considerable time getting to know Meghan over the past months, and their relationship had blossomed into genuine affection and mutual respect. He had been deeply touched when Meghan asked him to walk her down the aisle after her father's absence became final, seeing it as both an honor and a responsibility to support this remarkable young woman who had brought such joy to his younger son. The first to walk down the aisle were the page boys and bridesmaids, a charming procession of children that included Prince George and Princess Charlotte, William and Catherine's eldest children. Prince George, then 4 years old, looked adorable in his miniature military uniform, while 3-year-old Princess Charlotte was picture-perfect in her white dress and flower crown. The sight of the royal children participating in their uncle's wedding added a touch of family warmth to the formal ceremony and delighted viewers around the world. Following the children came Meghan's close friends who were serving as her bridesmaids, including Jessica Mulroney, Meghan's best friend and stylist, and several other women who had supported her through the challenges and excitement of royal life. Their elegant white dresses created a beautiful contrast against the rich colors of the chapel's stained glass windows and ancient tapestries. Then, came the moment everyone was waiting for. The music changed to the processional hymn, Eternal Father, Strong to Save, and all eyes turned to the great west door. Meghan appeared like a vision, walking slowly and gracefully down the long aisle of St. George's Chapel, her 15-foot train flowing behind her like liquid silk. The simplicity and elegance of her Givenchy gown was breathtaking, and the Queen Mary bandeau tiara caught the light streaming through the chapel's windows, creating an almost ethereal effect. But it was Meghan's face that truly captured everyone's attention. She was radiant with happiness, her smile genuine and confident as she made eye contact with guests and family members along her route to the altar. There was no nervousness or hesitation in her step. Instead, she moved with the poise and grace of someone who was exactly where she belonged, walking toward her future with complete certainty and joy. For the first part of her journey down the aisle, Meghan walked alone, a decision that had surprised some royal watchers, but perfectly reflected her independent spirit and self-confidence. This solo walk was symbolic of her journey to this moment, representing her own strength and the path she had traveled to reach this point in her life. The sight of her walking confidently and alone toward her groom was powerful and moving, demonstrating that this was a woman who knew her own mind and was choosing this life with full understanding of what it meant. Halfway down the aisle, Prince Charles stepped forward to meet her, offering his arm with a warm smile that spoke volumes about their relationship and his genuine pleasure in welcoming her to the family. The moment when Charles took Meghan's arm was deeply emotional for many viewers, representing not just royal protocol, but a father figure stepping in to support and honor a young woman on the most important day of her life. As they walked together toward the altar, Charles and Meghan exchanged quiet words that made them both smile, creating an intimate moment within the grandeur of the royal ceremony. Those who watched closely could see the genuine affection between them and the comfort that Charles's presence provided for Meghan during what could have been a difficult moment, given her father's absence. At the altar, Harry's face was transformed with pure joy and love as he watched his bride approach. When Charles placed Meghan's hand in Harry's, the Prince of Wales stepped back with obvious emotion, having fulfilled his role in bringing together two people whose love had already brought so much happiness to his family. The look that passed between Harry and Meghan in that moment was private and profound, speaking of shared understanding, mutual support, and a love that had grown stronger through every challenge they had faced together. The Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend Justin Welby, began the marriage service with words that had been spoken at royal weddings for generations, but which took on special meaning in the context of this particular union. He spoke of marriage as a gift from God and a means of grace, emphasizing the importance of love, commitment, and service to others that Harry and Meghan had already demonstrated in their relationship. The service included traditional elements that connected this modern wedding to centuries of royal history, including the reading of the banns of marriage and the formal asking of the congregation whether there was any reason why Harry and Meghan should not be married. The ancient words carried special weight in the context of a royal wedding, where marriage has always been about more than personal happiness, encompassing duty, service, and the continuation of an institution that represents stability and continuity for millions of people. The first reading from the Song of Solomon was delivered by Lady Jane Fellows, Princess Diana's sister, in a voice that carried both strength and emotion. Her presence in the ceremony was another way that Diana's memory was honored and included in this joyful celebration. The passage, which speaks of love as strong as death and as enduring as the grave, was particularly meaningful given the losses both Harry and Meghan had experienced in their lives and their commitment to building something lasting together. When a Most Reverend Michael Curry rose to deliver the wedding address, the energy in the chapel shifted dramatically. Bishop Curry's passionate and engaging speaking style was unlike anything typically heard at a royal wedding, and his message about the power of love to change the world resonated throughout the ancient space. He spoke of love as a redemptive force, referencing both Christian theology and the American civil rights movement, connecting the spiritual significance of marriage to the broader call for justice and compassion in the world. His address included quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and references to the power of fire as both a destructive and creative force, using the metaphor to describe how love can transform individuals and society. "There's power in love," he declared, his voice rising with conviction. "Love can help and heal when nothing else can. Love can lift up and liberate when nothing else will." The congregation, many of whom had never experienced such an impassioned sermon in a royal setting, was visibly moved by his words and the connection he drew between personal love and global responsibility. The musical selections throughout the ceremony reflected the international and inclusive spirit that Harry and Meghan had brought to their wedding planning. The chapel choir's performance of traditional Anglican music was complemented by the Kingdom Choir's stirring rendition of Stand By Me, which brought a different energy and cultural perspective to the royal ceremony. The gospel choir's performance was particularly moving, their rich harmonies and soulful delivery adding an element of joy and celebration that had rarely been heard in such formal royal settings. When it came time for the exchange of vows, Harry and Meghan faced each other with hands joined, speaking the traditional words of the Anglican marriage service with obvious sincerity and emotion. Harry's voice was steady and clear as he promised to love and cherish Meghan, while her responses were equally firm and confident, both of them fully present in the moment and committed to the promises they were making not just to each other, but before God and the assembled congregation. The exchange of rings was another deeply meaningful moment, as Harry placed on Meghan's finger a band of Welsh gold that had been crafted specifically for this day, continuing a royal tradition that dates back to the Queen Mother's wedding in 1923. Meghan's ring for Harry was a simple platinum band that reflected his practical nature and their preference for understated elegance over ostentatious display. As the Archbishop of Canterbury pronounced them husband and wife, the joy in the chapel was palpable. Harry and Meghan's first kiss as a married couple was tender and natural, completely unself-conscious despite the hundreds of guests and millions of viewers watching around the world. Their happiness was so genuine and infectious that it seemed to lift the spirits of everyone present, creating a moment of pure celebration that transcended protocol and tradition. The signing of the marriage register took place in the privacy of the vestry, attended only by immediate family members and the required witnesses. This brief interlude gave the new Duke and Duchess of Sussex a few precious minutes of relative privacy to absorb the magnitude of what had just happened and to share their joy with their closest family members. Queen Elizabeth II was among the first to congratulate the new couple, her obvious pleasure in their happiness evident in her warm embraces and genuine smiles. When Harry and Meghan emerged from the vestry as husband and wife, the transformation was visible to everyone present. They both seemed to glow with happiness and relief, the nervousness of the morning replaced by pure joy and excitement about beginning their new life together. As they prepared to process back down the aisle as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, they shared a private moment of gratitude for the love and support of their families and friends, and for the opportunity to use their platform to serve others and make a positive difference in the world. The recessional music, Wedding March by Felix Mendelssohn, filled the chapel with triumphant joy as Harry and Meghan walked hand in hand back down the aisle, their faces radiant with happiness. The congregation rose as one, their applause and cheers creating a wonderful sound of celebration that seemed to embody the hope and optimism that this wedding represented. As they reached the Great West Door and stepped out into the bright May sunshine, they were greeted by the cheers of thousands of well-wishers who had gathered to share in their special day, their joy infectious and their their love story complete. The moment Harry and Meghan stepped out of St. George's Chapel as the newly married Duke and Duchess of Sussex, they were greeted by an explosion of cheers, applause, and celebration that seemed to shake the very foundations of Windsor Castle. The bright May sunshine bathed the ancient stone steps in golden light, creating a perfect backdrop for their first public appearance as husband and wife. The roar of approval from the thousands of people gathered in the castle grounds was deafening, a spontaneous outpouring of joy and good wishes that came from the heart. Harry, still in his military dress uniform, could barely contain his excitement as he squeezed Meghan's hand and shared a moment of pure disbelief and happiness with his new wife. Meghan, radiant in her Givenchy gown with its 15-foot train perfectly arranged by her bridesmaids, looked every inch the fairy tale princess, but her smile and natural warmth reminded everyone watching that this was also very much a real woman who had just married the man she loved. The couple paused at the top of the chapel steps, taking in a sight of the massive crowd that stretched as far as they could see. Union Jack flags waved alongside American stars and stripes, while people from dozens of countries held up handmade signs expressing their congratulations and best wishes. The diversity of the crowd was remarkable, reflecting the international interest in their wedding and the hope that many people felt about what their union represented for the future of the royal family. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, desperately trying to catch a glimpse of the famous couple, while elderly royal watchers wiped away tears of joy as they witnessed this historic moment. Street performers who had been entertaining the crowds all morning broke into spontaneous songs and celebrations, creating a carnival atmosphere that was both respectful and exuberant. The carriage procession that followed was pure magic. Harry and Meghan climbed into the Ascot landau, an open-top carriage that allowed them to wave and interact with the crowds lining the route through Windsor. The horses, perfectly groomed and decorated with ceremonial bridles, stepped proudly through the castle grounds and out into the town of Windsor, where even more people had gathered to share in the celebration. As their carriage made its way through the streets, Harry and Meghan were clearly overwhelmed by the warmth and enthusiasm of the reception they received. They waved continuously, pointed out particularly creative signs and decorations to each other, and seemed genuinely touched by the effort that people had made to celebrate with them. Children threw flower petals in their path, while adults cheered and took countless photographs to capture this moment in history. The route through Windsor had been carefully planned to allow as many people as possible to see the newlyweds, and the decision to use an open carriage despite security concerns demonstrated Harry and Meghan's commitment to sharing their special day with the public. The procession moved at a stately pace, allowing time for the couple to acknowledge different sections of the crowd and for photographers to capture the joy and excitement on their faces. The carriage was followed by other members of the royal family, including Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip in the Scottish state coach, and Prince Charles and Camilla in another ceremonial vehicle. The sight of multiple generations of the royal family participating in this celebration created a powerful image of continuity and support for the newest members of the family. Back at Windsor Castle, preparations for the wedding reception were in full swing. The reception, hosted by Queen Elizabeth II in St. George's Hall, was an elegant affair that brought together all the wedding guests for an afternoon of celebration, fine food, and speeches that would become part of royal wedding legend. The hall, with its magnificent vaulted ceiling and historic portraits, provided a grand setting that honored both tradition and the significance of the occasion. The reception menu had been carefully chosen to reflect both British culinary traditions and modern tastes, with options that accommodated the diverse dietary preferences of the international guest list. The wedding cake, created by pastry chef Claire Tack, was a departure from traditional royal wedding cakes, featuring elderflower and lemon flavors with buttercream frosting and decorated with fresh flowers that echoed the chapel's decorations. The speeches during the reception were particularly memorable. Prince Charles spoke with obvious emotion about his joy in gaining a daughter-in-law who had brought such happiness to Harry and who shared the family's commitment to service and charity. His words about Meghan's strength, intelligence, and compassion moved many guests to tears, while his anecdotes about Harry's transformation since meeting Meghan brought laughter and warm applause. Prince William's best man speech was a perfect blend of brotherly teasing and genuine affection, recounting stories from their childhood and Harry's bachelor days while expressing his sincere happiness about Harry finding his perfect partner in Meghan. The bond between the two brothers was evident as William spoke about their shared experiences and his pride in the man Harry had become. Perhaps the most surprising and delightful moment came when Meghan herself rose to speak, breaking with royal tradition in a move that perfectly captured her independent spirit and confidence. Her impromptu remarks about her gratitude to the royal family for welcoming her so warmly, her love for Harry, and her excitement about using their platform to make a positive difference in the world were delivered with grace and sincerity that won over any remaining skeptics among the distinguished guests. The entertainment throughout the reception reflected the couple's personal tastes and their desire to create a celebration that honored both tradition and their own unique story. Classical musicians performed pieces that had special meaning for Harry and Meghan, while the gospel choir that had performed during the ceremony provided additional musical moments that created an atmosphere of joy and celebration. As the formal reception wound down, guests began to disperse, but the celebration was far from over. That evening, Prince Charles was hosting a more intimate reception for close friends and family at Frogmore House, the historic royal residence where Harry and Meghan had taken some of their engagement photographs. This second celebration would be more relaxed and personal, allowing the couple to let their hair down and truly enjoy their wedding day with the people closest to them. The evening reception was where Harry and Meghan could truly be themselves, away from the formal protocols and public scrutiny of the day. The guest list was limited to about 200 people, including their closest friends, family members, and the celebrities who had become genuine friends rather than mere acquaintances. The atmosphere was relaxed and festive, with music, dancing, and the kind of easy conversation that happens when people who truly care about each other come together to celebrate. Meghan had changed from her wedding gown into a stunning evening dress designed by Stella McCartney, a sleek white halter neck gown that was both elegant and modern. The dress perfectly captured Meghan's sophisticated style while being appropriate for dancing and moving freely throughout the evening. She also wore the aquamarine ring that had belonged to Princess Diana, a touching tribute to Harry's mother and a way of including her memory in their celebration. The evening's entertainment was spectacular, featuring performances by some of Harry and Meghan's favorite artists. Elton John, a close friend of Princess Diana and someone who had watched Harry grow up, performed several of his classic songs, creating magical moments that connected the past and present. His performance of Tiny Dancer was particularly moving, as it had been one of Diana's favorite songs, and his presence at the celebration was a beautiful way to honor her memory. The first dance between Harry and Meghan was a private moment shared with their closest friends and family, swaying to music that held special meaning for their relationship. Their obvious happiness and the natural way they moved together spoke volumes about their connection and their comfort with each other, even in the midst of such a momentous day. Throughout the evening, guests shared stories and memories that highlighted different aspects of Harry and Meghan's personalities and their relationship. Friends from Meghan's acting days spoke about her professionalism, kindness, and determination, while Harry's military colleagues shared anecdotes about his leadership, courage, and sense of humor. The picture that emerged was of two people who had found in each other not just romantic love, but true partnership and mutual support. The celebration continued late into the night, with guests enjoying the beautiful grounds of Frogmore House and the relaxed atmosphere that allowed for genuine conversation and connection. Many commented later that it felt less like a formal royal event and more like the kind of wedding celebration that any couple might have with their friends and family, which was exactly what Harry and Meghan had hoped to achieve. As the evening drew to a close, Harry and Meghan took a few minutes to step outside onto the terrace of Frogmore House, looking out over the gardens where they had spent so many happy hours during their engagement. The night air was warm and filled with the scent of spring flowers, and for a moment they could almost forget about the incredible day they had just experienced and simply be a newly married couple enjoying their first evening as husband and wife. They talked quietly about the day, sharing their favorite moments and expressing their amazement at the overwhelming support and love they had received from family, friends, and the public. Both were moved by the warmth of the reception they had received and excited about beginning their new life together as working members of the royal family. The wedding had exceeded all their expectations, not just in terms of the pageantry and celebration, but in the genuine emotion and connection they had felt throughout the day. From a moment Meghan walked down the aisle to their final dance of the evening, everything had felt perfect and meaningful, a true celebration of their love and their commitment to each other and to the causes they both cared about. As they prepared to leave Frogmore House and begin their honeymoon, Harry and Meghan knew that this day had marked not just the beginning of their marriage, but the start of a new chapter in the story of the British royal family. Their wedding had shown the world that the monarchy could embrace change and diversity while maintaining its dignity and traditions, and their happiness had given hope to countless people who saw in their love story proof that barriers could be broken and dreams could come true. The day had been everything they had dreamed of and more, a perfect beginning to what they hoped would be a long and happy marriage dedicated to love, service, and making a positive difference in the world. As they drove away from Windsor Castle as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, they carried with them the blessings and good wishes of millions of people around the world and the confidence that their love could overcome any challenges that lay ahead. The days following the royal wedding were filled with a whirlwind of media coverage, public reaction, and private moments as Harry and Meghan adjusted to their new life as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. The world's fascination with their love story showed no signs of diminishing, and every detail of their wedding continued to be analyzed, celebrated, and discussed by royal watchers, fashion experts, cultural commentators, and ordinary people who had been touched by the magic of their special day. The immediate aftermath of the wedding was overwhelmingly positive. Newspapers around the world featured front-page coverage of the ceremony, with headlines celebrating the couple's obvious happiness and the historic nature of their union. Fashion magazines dissected every element of Meghan's wedding look, from her Givenchy gown to her choice of makeup and jewelry, while social media exploded with millions of posts sharing favorite moments from the ceremony and reception. The economic impact of the wedding was immediate and substantial. Tourism to Windsor saw a dramatic increase as people from around the world flocked to see where this fairy tale had become reality. Local businesses reported record sales of commemorative items, while hotels and restaurants in the area struggled to accommodate the influx of visitors hoping to experience some of the magic for themselves. More significantly, the cultural impact of the wedding began to be felt almost immediately. The inclusion of gospel music, an African-American bishop, and the diverse guest list had sent a powerful message about the direction the royal family was taking in the 21st century. Young people, particularly those from minority backgrounds, expressed feeling more connected to the monarchy than ever before, seeing in Harry and Meghan's wedding proof that the institution was capable of evolution and inclusion. The international media coverage highlighted the global reach of the British royal family and the soft power that comes with such worldwide attention. From Australia to Canada, from South Africa to the United States, people had gathered to watch the wedding, hosting viewing parties and celebrating along with the couple. The positive coverage generated enormous goodwill for Britain and the Commonwealth, demonstrating the continued relevance of the monarchy in building international relationships and cultural connections. Behind the scenes, Harry and Meghan were adjusting to the realities of their new roles. Their first official engagement as a married couple came just days after their wedding, when they attended a garden party at Buckingham Palace in honor of Prince Charles's 70th birthday. The ease with which Meghan moved through the formal protocols and her natural ability to connect with guests from all walks of life impressed even the most skeptical royal observers. The couple's body language during those early public appearances spoke volumes about their happiness and their confidence in their new partnership. They were clearly still in the honeymoon phase of their marriage, but their professional demeanor and obvious commitment to their royal duties showed that they understood the responsibilities that came with their titles and were prepared to embrace them wholeheartedly. Their honeymoon, though kept private, was reported to have been a perfect blend of relaxation and adventure, reflecting their shared love of travel and new experiences. The destination remained a closely guarded secret, but those close to the couple suggested that they had chosen somewhere that allowed them to truly unwind and enjoy each other's company away from the intense public scrutiny they had experienced in the lead-up to and aftermath of their wedding. Upon their return, Harry and Meghan threw themselves into their royal duties with enthusiasm and energy. Their first major overseas tour as a married couple was to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and Tonga, coinciding with the Invictus Games in Sydney. The tour was considered a massive success, with the couple's natural warmth and genuine interest in the people and causes they encountered winning over crowds and media alike. During this tour, the world learned that Meghan was pregnant with their first child, adding another layer of joy and excitement to their story. The announcement was made in the traditional way, through the royal family's social media accounts and an official statement from Kensington Palace, but the couple's obvious happiness was visible to everyone who saw them during their public appearances. The pregnancy news was met with worldwide celebration, as people began to anticipate the arrival of a royal baby who would be truly international in heritage, with American and British citizenship and representing a new generation of royals who would grow up in an increasingly connected and diverse world. The fact that their child would be seventh in line to the throne, while significant, seemed less important than what he or she would represent in terms of the royal family's evolution and adaptation to modern times. As Meghan's pregnancy progressed, she continued to carry out royal engagements with grace and energy, though the physical demands of her condition were sometimes visible. Her choice to continue working right up until her maternity leave and her openness about the challenges of pregnancy while in the public helped to humanize the royal family in ways that resonated with women around the world. The couple's approach to their royal roles was refreshingly modern and authentic. They used social media effectively to share their work and connect with younger audiences while maintaining the dignity and respect that their positions demanded. Their joint initiatives in areas like mental health awareness, veteran support, and women's empowerment demonstrated their shared values and their commitment to using their platform for meaningful change. However, the intense media attention that had made their love story so captivating also began to take its toll. The British tabloid press, in particular, seemed determined to find fault with Meghan, subjecting her to a level of scrutiny and criticism that many observers felt was unfair and, at times, racially motivated. Stories about everything from her family relationships to her fashion choices were dissected and often presented in the most negative light possible. The contrast between the treatment Meghan received and the coverage of other royal family members became increasingly stark, leading to growing concern among their friends and supporters about the impact such negative attention might have on the couple's well-being and their ability to carry out their royal duties effectively. Despite these challenges, Harry and Meghan's commitment to each other and to their work remained strong. They established their own charitable foundation, focusing on issues close to their hearts and working to make a tangible difference in areas where they felt their influence could be most effective. Their approach to philanthropy was hands-on and personal, often involving direct engagement with the communities and individuals they were trying to help. The birth of their son, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, in May 2019, exactly 1 year after their wedding, was another moment of pure joy that captured the world's attention. The couple's decision to keep the birth private initially and then introduce their son to the world on their own terms showed their determination to protect their family while still fulfilling their public obligations. Archie's christening was another opportunity for the couple to blend tradition with their personal values, choosing godparents who reflected their close friendships rather than purely aristocratic connections, and keeping the ceremony private while sharing carefully chosen photographs with the public. As their first wedding anniversary approached, Harry and Meghan had successfully established themselves as working members of the royal family while maintaining their individual personalities and shared commitment to making a difference. Their marriage had weathered the intense public scrutiny and the pressures of royal life, emerging stronger and more committed than ever. The anniversary itself was marked privately, with the couple choosing to spend the day away from public duties, reflecting on the incredible year they had shared and looking forward to the future they were building together. The contrast between the global celebration of their wedding day and the quiet intimacy of their anniversary perfectly captured the balance they were trying to achieve between their public roles and their private happiness. Looking back at their wedding day from the perspective of their first anniversary, both Harry and Meghan could see how much they had grown both individually and as a couple. The fairy tale romance that had captured the world imagination had evolved into a mature partnership based on shared values, mutual support, and a deep commitment to using their position to serve others. The wedding had been the beginning of their story, not its culmination. Every challenge they had faced, every success they had achieved, and every moment of joy they had shared had built on the foundation established on that perfect May day when they promised to love and support each other for the rest of their lives. Their love story had given hope to millions of people around the world, proving that barriers could be overcome, that love could triumph over obstacles, and that two people committed to making a difference could indeed change the world, one act of kindness and service at a time. The wedding had been just the beginning of what they hoped would be a long and meaningful journey together, dedicated to love, family, and service to others. As they looked toward the future, Harry and Meghan knew that their greatest adventure was still ahead of them. They had created something beautiful together, not just in their marriage, but in their approach to royal life and their commitment to using their platform for positive change. Their wedding day would always be remembered as a moment of pure magic and possibility, but their real legacy would be built through the years of service, love, and dedication that would follow. The fairy tale wedding had been perfect, but the real story of Harry and Meghan was just beginning, and it promised to be even more remarkable than the magical day that had brought them together as husband and wife before the eyes of the world.